All right. Welcome, America, to the greatest day ever. I don't have to tell anybody in this room, these are my favorite people on the planet right here. You guys are the MAGA warriors. You guys, thank you. Thank you for everything you do. Well, I also don't have to tell you there's a new sheriff in town, right? Donald J. Trump was right about everything. Everything. I've known him for a long time. I was blessed to be his physician and work in the White House side by side with him. I was blessed enough to be with him on January 20, 2017, 8 years ago. I spent the day with him. I watched him give his inaugural address. And I'll tell you, I was extraordinarily blessed to have just come from the Capitol, where I had one of the most satisfying 2 hours of my entire life, when I get to listen to President Trump talk about how horrible this country has been treated, and all of us have been treated, and the horrible things that have been done to all of us this last administration for the last 4 years, and how he was going to fix it all, and he did it right there with Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, Jill Biden, and everybody else, Kamala Harris. They had to sit there and listen to it, and I loved it. Loved it. I'll tell you what, you know, I thought for sure, I mean, I've always said that the 45th President of the United States is the absolute best president that this country has ever had. But you know what? I think the 47th president's going to be even better. We are in for a change. This is a great day. How many of you out there think this is one of the best days of your entire life? Absolutely it is. We had one chance to get this country back. We were headed down a path of destruction that we would never, ever recover from. I promise you. And we have been given a second chance in the form of Donald J. Trump. He's here, he's back, and he's going to fix what's broken. We're going to get our border back. We're going to stop the illegal immigrants and the cartels that have laid devastation to this country. We're going to lock them up. We're going to get rid of them. We're going to get our economy back. We're going to get our military back. We're going to get our federal government back. We're taking it all back. This is a great time to be an American. This is a great day to be an American. And I just wanted to come here, and I can't wait till he gets here to talk to all of you guys. I want to thank you for what you've done, because he got elected because people like you got out and you voted, and you took neighbors who've never voted to the polls, and we all voted, and there was an overwhelming mandate in this country for Donald Trump to come in here and to take this country back. And so I know we're all excited to be here today. It's going to be super exciting when he gets here in a minute. I just wanted to come up here and tell you how much I love you, how much I appreciate you. I want to say God bless you, God bless the United States of America, and God bless Donald J. Trump. Thank you, guys. Hey everybody, Congressman Ronny Jackson from the 13th Congressional District of Texas. I'm here at the Republican retreat in Key Biscayne right now, just catching up on some of the news of the day, and I am absolutely astonished at what I saw. This is a message from me as a member of Congress to President Zelensky right now. Don't you ever come back to this country again and disrespect our country, disrespect the Oval Office, and disrespect my president the way you did today. After all that we've done for you, your unbelievable sense of entitlement is disgusting to me, and it's disgusting to most Americans in this country. As far as I'm concerned, you can go home and never come back. Thank you, General. We'll start with questions now, and I'll start by recognizing myself. General Fenton, we had our office call about 3 weeks ago, and you mentioned the challenges of supporting all the requests of SOF that you're getting from the geographic combatant commands. In your statement, you mentioned a 35% increase from 2023 to 2025. Can you expand a little bit for the benefit of the folks here watching this hearing? Can you tell us a little bit give us a better sense of what that number is and how many times you've had to deny requests and the reason that you have to do so.
Representative, I'll start by saying the COCOM demand for Special Operations Forces is up, and I'm sure you've heard that from the combatant commanders that come before you. I think for a number of reasons in deterrence. First, they know that the highest value proposition in some sense that SOF provides is prior to conflict. The things we do to prevent, building relationships, developing access basing and overflight, providing indications and warnings, along with everything we're doing to prepare in the event that worst day comes, closing kill webs or kill chains or sensor systems, giving COCOM commanders options and opportunities they wouldn't otherwise have, and presenting a whole bunch of dilemmas and challenges to an adversary they wouldn't have. I think that's why we see the demand going up, and that comes in the form of asking for Special Forces teams, Marine Raider teams, NSW teams, command and control elements, AVSOC, and that's that 35% increase. To your point on where we've had to say no, I'll give you a number. Last December in one of the global force management tanks, I had to say no 41 times to requests just like that. It hurt my heart. It's a high compliment that this SOF team is that value proposition to the entire department. We couldn't do it. And we couldn't do it, my sense, and I'll wind this down for you, is two reasons. There's certainly a capability and capacity piece against the great humans that do that work. And as you know, we've been reduced in the past, a couple years, by up to 5,000. But there's also now a fiscal constraint that's pulling at us based on an increasingly decreasing top line, that now comes into play. So at times, even if I could put the person out there, fiscally, the cost is prohibitive. And I'll pause there, Representative.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. We're going to do our best to fix that. Secretary Jenkins, SOCOM's budget has been relatively flat for the past decade. In your combined written statement, it is less than 2% of the budget and one of the few DoD organizations that has not seen an increase, although overall budget has increased significantly. How are you using your service-like secretary position to campaign for a higher budget for SOCOM, and how much do you think SOCOM needs?
Well, thank you, Chairman. We love those kind of questions, so thank you very much. In my service-like capacity, it is very much my responsibility and role to campaign, to keep those sharp elbows out so that I can advocate on behalf of our SOF enterprise. And just last week, we had the opportunity to brief the new Deputy Secretary of Defense and had a very warm reception in terms of examining what we would have to propose for 8% cuts, because every organization is being asked to propose those. And we found a good reception in terms of we want to keep you whole the best that we can. So it's our responsibility to make sure that we interact with our service counterparts. That's where we see, maybe danger is a strong word, but that's when they consider cuts, there are so many downstream effects to us that aren't often taken into account when the Army considers a cut, or the Navy, or so forth. So that's where we really hedge and defend our budget, so that we make sure when services are proposing other cuts, we can step in early or before and make sure that we guard our equities as well. So it's an ongoing campaign. We have a regular warfare out against our adversaries, and we also run similar regular warfare within the department to protect our equities.
Do you have any idea what that number looks like?
I don't know the top number just yet. It hasn't been identified. I'd have to leave that to the deputy and the comptroller as well, but I know that those are actively being considered right now.
Okay, thank you. My time is essentially up here, so I'm going to yield and recognize Ranking. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to our witnesses for being here today. Appreciate your time. For over 20 years, Congress has failed to properly reauthorize the State Department, which has allowed the federal bureaucracy to circumvent congressional oversight. If Biden's State Department proved anything to us, it's that these bloated agencies must be kept in check, or federal bureaucrats will act on their own whims, independent of the needs of the American people. Thankfully, President Trump and Secretary Rubio have already taken decisive action to restructure the Department of State to better align with our foreign policy objectives and put citizens of the United States first. Both sides of the aisle have argued that foreign service performance evaluation and promotion processes lack objectivity and transparency. The issue is largely due to the previous administration's obsession with DEI, where former Secretary of State Blinken released a 5-year diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility strategic plan to, quote, ensure that the Department of State is a leader in the government-wide efforts to advance DEIA goals for federal workforce. Fortunately, President Trump and Secretary Rubio are working to ensure that all Foreign Service recruitment, hiring, promotion, and retention decisions are based on the individual's merit and merit alone. Ambassador Hale, what can this committee do to ensure that Foreign Service personnel education and promotion processes are based on merit even after the Trump administration is completed?
Well, I think this is a core concern. We're a meritocracy. The Foreign Service is largely based on, staffing is largely based on a Foreign Service exam that is competitive. And we are pledged to the concept of up or out. In my experience, however, in my career, there was a lot of up, but there wasn't much out. And my data may be undoubtedly is old, but when I was in office, the data generally was about 0.5 to 1.5% of the Foreign Service each year was separated for, basically for non-performance. I suspect that there were probably more people than that who were not meeting the standards that objectively would be required. But part of the problem was that the promotion process produces a list where the bottom third or the lower performing staff. But then the next number you come into is how many positions do we have to fill? So the cut goes deeper than the cutoff mark for people who are really not performing by any objective standards. So we retain people who frankly really aren't capable, which is where streamlining can become very important. So you not only look at the people, but also look at positions and make sure that positions we have are really things we need to be doing. I personally don't get all that caught up in the reorganization charts. I'm not saying they're not important, but what is important is filling those boxes with people who can do the job. I mean, A, filling them, which we've seen as a problem in some administrations, and then B, making sure, as I said at the beginning, that they actually have the skill set needed and are held accountable to their performance, and that they understand the mindset of the Foreign Service should be that we are not policymakers. We are there to provide our expertise and knowledge and advice. Decision makers are other people, and when decisions are made, that we salute smartly and implement those policies rather than, but they also has to make sure that we have a climate inside the Foreign Service and the civil service that enables dissent and creativity, which is going to produce the best policies we can have.
I agree with you on that. And I also think that recruitment and retention are going to be important as well, obviously. And I think that a merit-based system will help with the recruitment and retention and fill some of those boxes you were talking about. I have one more question real quick in my remaining time here. Consular officers play a vital role in our national defense, adjudicating who receives a visa to come to the United States and who is denied entry. Ambassador Jeffrey, given the important role of the Consular Affairs Office in maintaining the security of our borders, is there any merit to moving the consular visa adjudication function from the State Department to the Department of Homeland Security? And if not, why not?
As I indicated in my remarks, I would support that because the policy is determined by Homeland Security, not the State Department. Secondly, we have more people from other agencies at a typical embassy than we do people from the State Department. So just because there would be more DH people and a few less State Department visa offices, that would not be a major change in how embassies work or deal with. But the third thing is, and it gets to the question you posed to David, one reason that we're having a hard time evaluating on merit Foreign Service officers is that we don't know what their core skill is. The Marine Corps is well aware of what it is, every Marine a rifleman. Ours should be every Foreign Service officer a diplomat. But over the years, the accumulation of administrative functions has led to us thinking our people are managers. Now, management is fine. I've got a master's in business administration, but the core skill is diplomacy. And the visa function, unlike taking care of Americans abroad, which is a core consular diplomatic function, the visa function is a managerial function. It almost never involves dealing with the host government. We keep the host governments out of it, just like they keep, we don't have any say as a government in Germany or other countries letting, Americans travel there. So I think that it would be cleaner and it would streamline how we look at ourselves if that function were to go.
Thank you, Ambassador. I appreciate your input, and I yield back. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, Chairman Crawford, for leading this issue and for your support of this oversight review. The American people deserve a government that is accountable and transparent. Oversight of the intelligence community is intended to ensure those in that community are held to this same standard. As the chairman of the Oversight and Investigations Subcommittee, there is no greater priority than ensuring elements of the IC are employing proper investigative and analytic tradecraft independent of political considerations. That is why we worked around the clock to review the case file provided by Director Patel and publish this vital oversight report just weeks later. My subcommittee is conducting several ongoing investigations and oversight initiatives with a common thread. Intelligence analysis and assessments are falling short of the objectivity and integrity standards required by law. As Chairman Crawford already stated, it is extremely concerning that the FBI had enough confidence in their shoddy investigative efforts to conclude that this was, quote, suicide by cop and close this file. If you read the report, you will see this is absolutely ridiculous. Most notably, our report finds that there were no hard facts to support the FBI's suicide by cop conclusion. Based on our review of 3,000 plus pages provided to the committee, the only reasonable and quite frankly the very obvious determination was that this was an act of domestic terrorism. Despite those clear and contrary facts indicating domestic terrorism, the FBI's investigative efforts and intelligence analysis strained to reinforce this predetermined suicide by cop narrative. For example, to support the FBI analysis that this shooter conducted an opportunistic act of suicide by cop, the FBI analysis refers to comments by a family member speculating at the possibility based on a lack of significant number of fatalities. He didn't think that enough people died for that to be the case. Aside from being incredibly offensive to the 4 victims shot by the attacker, this analysis fails to note that the shooting began, there were absolutely no uniformed police officers anywhere around visible to the shooter. Further, the FBI analysis claimed that the shooter moved toward the gunfire. There was absolutely no support for this claim in the case file. The FBI did not conduct critical interviews with victims and eyewitnesses. As a result, no witnesses were given an opportunity to contradict this theory. On the other hand, the media did interview the eyewitnesses, and they found that the shooter targeted victims from a concealed position in order to protect himself. Finally, our report finds that the FBI's press release was used to mislead and influence public opinion. For example, the FBI told the public that the photos the shooter had taken at the baseball field, quote, did not represent surveillance of intended targets. Yet, the internal official report that we reviewed, the case file states, quote, the FBI assesses photos may indicate possible probing and casing. In addition, the FBI used deceptive language to hide the fact that the shooter had a handwritten manifesto, which was found in his van, indicating his real motive. His real motive was assassinating Republican congressmen to, quote, win back the power of the people. Regardless of political party, we must all stand united against political violence of any kind and condemn this violent attack as what it really was, an act of domestic terrorism. While I am deeply disappointed by the conduct of the FBI under Acting Director McCabe in 2017, I am encouraged by the transparency shown by Director Patel. I will continue to work with Chairman Crawford to bring integrity, objectivity, and accountability back to the FBI and the rest of the intelligence community. Long story short, we have a long way to go to rebuild and reestablish the trust and the confidence of the American people in the FBI, the DOJ, and our intelligence community. This starts that process. Thank you, and with that, I will turn it over to Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan to say a few words.
Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Chairman Mast, for holding this crucial hearing and allowing Secretary Rubio to highlight the overwhelming successes accomplished so far in the Trump administration. Secretary Rubio, thank you for being here today and for the incredible work that you and the department are doing. We're really proud of it. Thank you. I want to echo your opening statement. America is back. From bringing home hostages held in Gaza, initiating peace agreement between the DRC and Rwanda, countering China's influence around the world, and much, much more, we are back. Thanks to the great work of President Trump and your great leadership, the United States is restoring its place on the world stage. No longer will the United States refuse to engage in foreign policy and diplomacy, but rather we will lead with peace through strength. I've traveled a lot recently via my various committees, including this one, throughout the continent of Africa. And I've one thing I've seen is that we've really neglected Africa. We have spent a lot of money and wasted a lot of money there, in my mind, with no strategic thought whatsoever into how we're spending this money. I have a question for you regarding South Africa. South Africa has withdrawn from America and our allies in recent years while increasing diplomatic relationships with our foreign adversaries, deepening cooperation with China, attacking our greatest ally, Israel, at the International Court of Justice, downgrading Taiwan's diplomatic presence, and condoning violence and race-based persecution against minorities. I fully support President Trump's executive order to bolster the administration's efforts in combating the egregious actions taken by South Africa. To support the administration's efforts, I recently introduced the U.S.-South Africa Bilateral Relations Review Act, which would conduct a full review of our relationship with the Republic of South Africa and allow for the use of targeted sanctions against corrupt officials in the African National Congress. Secretary Rubio, have you seen South Africa align with our adversaries like China, Iran, and Russia, and do you believe a full review of our bilateral relationship would be beneficial in the U.S.'s posture and strategy toward this country?
Yes, on your first two questions, and an interesting topic, and maybe even as we speak, the President is actually meeting with the President of South Africa who requested that meeting, and it will be happening today. Obviously, I'm here with you today, otherwise I would be at that. So I imagine these topics will be raised there as well.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. And with that, I'm going to yield the remainder of my time to my colleague, Mr. McKenzie.
I recognize the gentleman from Texas, Dr. Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to our witnesses for being here today. I deeply appreciate your time. Mr. Secretary, I would like to start by apologizing for some of the rude and childish behavior that was demonstrated earlier by one of my colleagues. I think I speak for several members on this committee. I apologize for that. Unfortunately, it's probably not the last bit of disrespectful grandstanding that's going to take place before this hearing is over. Secretary, under President Donald Trump's leadership, our government has been refocused on the most pressing challenges facing our nation. Instead of woke DEI and climate change programs, this administration is advancing our military readiness and lethality. As adversaries seek to challenge the United States, we must do better to equip, train, and defend this great nation. And Mr. Secretary, on behalf of the patriotic Americans in the 13th Congressional District of Texas, I want to thank you for what you're doing to reclaim our military. I think you're doing a wonderful job. Last month at SOF Week, you stressed an important and foundational SOF truth. People, not equipment, make the critical difference. Our SOF community employ a number of capabilities and special expertise that bolster our ability to deter the PRC and set conditions, if needed, that provide the United States with distinctive advantages. We ask a lot of our special operations forces, more and more as each day goes by, and that's only going to continue. Crisis response remains a critical mission performed by SOCOM, and despite flat funding, this responsibility has risen as high as 200% over the last decade. Mr. Secretary, as you highlighted during SOF Week, our operators' lethal precision and timely crisis response capabilities have met these growing demands every single time. Given this significant and sustained increase in operational tempo, what can the department do to alleviate resource constraints in SOCOM's budget to ensure critical crisis response capabilities are properly funded and that our SOF operators can continue to meet the evolving global threats, both with great power competition and in the counterterrorism arena?
It's a great question, sir. I appreciate it. We start by listening to those units, to those men, what they're facing, what they need, what their families need, and then resource it. Because not only have they been used more than anybody else over the last 20 years, but even in just the last 4 or 5 years, the amount of times we call on the Special Forces community, Special Operations community, has increased. So the funding needs to match that, which you'll see in this budget. The training needs to be commensurate with it. And then I think morale and standards really matter. There's a reason why we've looked at schoolhouses of some of our most elite Special Operations forces and ensured that standards have not eroded. Because under the previous administration, for political reasons, in pursuit of political correctness, for other ideologies, standards were dropped, whether formally or informally, amongst certain communities, to sometimes reach quotas or sometimes for ideological perspectives. We want to ensure standards go up to the highest possible level. Anyone who can qualify meets those standards. And guess what that does for those units? It increases morale, increases unit cohesion, because they know they're as capable as they can possibly be.
Thank you. General Kane, do you have anything to add to that?
Sir, most of those matters are policies that my civilian leaders set and not something that the Joint Force weighs in on, as you know, and thank you for your service.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And I will say that, we've had lots of discussions about this, and I know you're aware of this, but the special operations community is being spread extremely thin right now. And, SOCOM, JSOC, they're repeatedly and more often having to tell the geographic combatant commanders that they cannot do what they're being asked to do just because they don't have the resources or the people to do the job. So anything I can personally do, and I'm sure many others on this committee, we're willing to make sure that we can do that. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you.
Now pleased to recognize the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, Mr.
5
Chairman.
minutes.
Thank you, Madam Secretary, for being here today. We appreciate your time. I just want to tell you, start off by saying the great state of Texas is really proud of you. You're doing a wonderful job. We really appreciate it. I will say that, during the Biden administration, the USDA was weaponized to push identity politics, green energy scams, and lots of other things that were the detriment of rural America and our agricultural producers. Once again, on behalf of myself and the hardworking farmers and ranchers of Texas' 13th Congressional District, I want to thank you, Madam Secretary, for returning the USDA to its original mission of taking care of all of these that feed and clothe our country. I have the pleasure, as you know, of representing the largest fed cattle district in the United States. And my feeders rely on imports of live cattle from Mexico to supplement their feed yards and remain competitive in what they do. I understand that the restriction on live animals was not an easy choice, and that the USDA made that to protect America's herd health. But every day that imports are suspended, my constituents, their businesses are severely impacted. Madam Secretary, I just wanted to ask you, as you mentioned in your testimony, the USDA is currently reviewing the import suspension every 30 days. Could you please describe to us what are the metrics the agency would like to reach before resuming re-entry of live cattle? And what can this committee do to enhance inspection activities at U.S. ports of entry along the southern border once the suspension is lifted? We want to do everything we can to get this over as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I hear you and realize this is a significant decision with big consequences for not just Mexico, but for us, for Texans, and for the industry. The 30 days is our benchmark, but we're assessing every single day. The metric that we're looking for is to watch the screwworm retreat south. It basically moved from about 1,100 feet from the border, 1,100 miles from the border to 700 miles from the border within just a matter of weeks, which again, we hadn't seen that kind of movement in decades. I can't underscore enough what a dire situation this is. We have put tens of millions of dollars into additional sterile fly production south of the border. We'll have a significant announcement in a couple days to continue expanding on that. I'm in almost daily touch with Secretary Buttigieg of Mexico. The challenge is that the sophistication of their data collection, not surprisingly, south of the border is not up to our standards. So they have, I will give them credit more than ever before, at least in our team's partnership, have been more open and more willing to allow our team on the ground to ourselves assess the situation. But please know that every day we are on this and we understand the consequence of this decision and are working so hard to be able to open those ports back up.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And obviously, the sterile fly facility is going to help with the long-term, dealing with this from the long term, so that we don't get, like you said, in this situation where it plagues us for the next 30 years. But yeah, anything we can do on the short term, that's going to be key for the folks that I represent right now. I also wanted to applaud your leadership in quickly and effectively delivering desperately needed economic assistance for America's farmers and ranchers. While the last administration delayed critical disaster assistance to promote identity politics, which it was unthinkable, your agency is working to swiftly deliver support to producers that will help them remain in operation. As we continue to move towards the implementation of the Supplemental Disaster Relief Program, how are you ensuring that our farmers who suffered from indemnified losses and shallow losses are compensated in a timely fashion?
I am really proud of this. I think relative to, and not to throw the last administration completely under the bus, I think this is true of many of the administrations before us, but we have moved more quickly than even most people thought possible. The ECAP, of course, went out ahead of time, and you send your paperwork in within 3 days. We turned the funding around. The next tranche is the 20 billion. The 10 billion was the first tranche, the 21 billion. We've already begun to move that out. You probably are tracking the livestock piece was the first piece. In Texas alone, 41,000 producers, 2023 losses, 13,000 producers, 2024 losses. That money is moving. We've already begun distribution and should be finished in the next 30 to 60 days with all of it. There's some hangups with the Northeast Block Grant, but for Texas and the livestock, it's moving very quickly.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I do think you're doing a great job. It's much faster than it used to be, and it hasn't been so much the ability to get the relief approved, but to get it delivered to those who need it. So thank you for what you're doing. With that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you.
Postponed. Are there any further amendments? Which one?
Jackson. Hello. Thank you so much. Thank you, Chairman Mass. Thank you, Ranking Member Meeks, members of the committee.
You just tell me you have an amendment at the desk.
I have an amendment at the desk.
There you go.
Thank you. I'm anxious to get started. We'll wait for you to
Appreciate that.
Thank you, Ronnie. Thank you, Chairman.
Clerk shall distribute the amendment that you just requested. Clerk shall report the amendment.
Amendment to H.R. 2633, offered by Mr. Jackson of Illinois. Redesignate Section 7 as Section 8. After Section 6, insert the following.
Without objection, further reading of the amendment is dispensed with. Representative is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you so much, Chairman Mass. Thank you, Chairman Meeks. Today I hear whether through indifference or deliberate misdirection, terms that are invoking white genocide. I think in order for us to heal the wound, we first have to acknowledge the truths versus the lies. There is no genocide going on in South Africa. I think we should be able to say that clearly and plainly. There has been an atrocious history in South Africa, but a new South Africa is being born, and I hope that we, as members of this body, will be able to participate. But stoking those embers of fear and hatred and racial animosity will not yield us a very positive result. This committee considers sanctions. Sanctions is a moral instrument of pressure, yet some argue we must punish the South African government not for repression, but for seeking justice in land reform, economic justice, and voting, for redistributing land that was stolen from its people, for unsettling the long imbalance of racial injustice in South Africa. Let me be clear, justice is not genocide. Accountability is not persecution. Our work involves careful review of the information that shapes America's foreign policy, especially as it relates to critical partners like South Africa. My amendment to H.R. 2633 ensures that our relationship with South Africa is rooted in fact and not fear. Section 7A calls on Congress to insist on honesty in our diplomatic interactions. At the highest level during the meetings between President Trump and President Ramaphosa, misinformation or lies were circulated. Video evidence, which was a lie, was having to say there was proof positive of body bags in South Africa, but those body bags were actually in the Democratic Republic of the Congo and depicted Congolese victims. And for that, we've never apologized to the president of South Africa. Having a level of humility gives you truth, and then you can build. Another claim involved individuals making racist or incendiary remarks, yet those people were expelled from the relevant political party long ago. They are not a part of the ANC. We have people in our very government right here that are part of Proud Boys and Oath Keepers, and we do not associate them with the party that's currently in power. We can tell truth to power. Fabrications about so-called white genocide in South Africa have entered headlines in social media. These stories suggest that white South Africans face widespread targeted violence and extermination. They gain traction in certain groups, but data does not support the narrative. And I ask my colleagues, show us the narratives or the vernacular of the young people, bring us the receipts. There's no evidence. South African police statistics, independent human rights monitors, and multiple international investigations confirm no pattern in practice matching the claims of systemic government-backed attacks or extermination campaigns against white citizens. I wish we could have an honest conversation and people would bring information. Misinformation about this subject routinely creates international tension, leads to fear-mongering, and can distort U.S. policy if not challenged directly. Section 7B of this amendment instructs the president to review the accuracy and completeness of background information offered for that meeting within 120 days. The president must provide a report to both the House Foreign Affairs Committee and the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. I would say that I have a problem in taking the president at his word and on prima facie on what he designates to be his truth. This effort establishes accountability. Congress receives documentation and details for decisions made in America's name abroad. My amendment encourages truth over rumor, accurate reporting, and careful review to form the foundations of ethical foreign policy. Misleading stories about South Africa, especially those invoking the false narrative of white genocide. Wherever there's genocide, that should be highlighted and we should be focused on it. No other country in the world is saying there's South African white genocide. This risks damaging partnerships and erode trust within communities affected by years of injustice. Policies shaped by rumor and deception carries real consequences. By favoring fact and oversight, this committee protects the integrity of our relationships and contributes to a future grounded in mutual respect. I urge all my colleagues to prioritize fact over fictions, to have truth over lies in our relationship with South Africa, and to support my amendment. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Representative Jackson is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Unfortunately, this amendment is another attempt by my Democrat colleagues to attack President Trump. The meeting between President Trump and the South African president sent a clear message. The ANC has led efforts to target and attack Afrikaner farmers, and we cannot tolerate these deliberate injustices. This amendment seeks to appease the South African government and is an unserious attack on the administration and its efforts to do the right thing in this case. I encourage every member of this committee to oppose this amendment. With that, Mr. Chair, I yield back.
Any other members seek recognition? Representative Meeks.
I support the gentleman's amendment that calls attention to President Trump's offensive treatment of President Ramaphosa during their meeting at the White House this past May. Like so many, I was surprised to see President Trump invoke images purporting to document the mass killing of white farmers in South Africa, when I was aware of no such evidence. And I was disappointed to see President Trump confront the South African delegation with video of bombastic opposition politicians and expect the South African government to be responsible for the reprehensible views those opposition leaders espouse. Public reporting since then has attempted to set the record straight, noting that the photos actually depicted casualties from the brutal violence in Eastern Democratic Republic of the Congo, and backing up President Ramaphosa's assertion that the opposition leaders in the video do not speak for the government of South Africa. But we deserve to know from President Trump whether he has determined that the information he received from his aides in preparation for that meeting is accurate. You know what? Facts matter. They always have, and they always will. And this amendment will help us to clarify important information from that bilateral meeting. In fact, it will determine the facts of what was presented at the meeting. And I urge my colleagues to vote yes, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Any other members seek recognition? Seeing none. Being no further discussion, the question now occurs on the amendment offered by Representative Jackson. Number 1, I oppose this amendment. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying no. No. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it. The amendment is not agreed to.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to have a roll.
A roll call vote has been requested pursuant to the chair's previous announcement. This vote will be postponed.
Be heard. If not, there's no further discussion on the bill. The committee will move to consideration of amendments. Does any member wish to offer an amendment? Mr. Meeks.
I have an amendment at the desk.
Clerk will distribute the amendment.
Yes, no. I have more. 41.
Number 41.
Clerk shall report the amendment.
Amendment to H.R. 2633, offered by Mr. Meeks of New York. Page 2, beginning on line 3. Insert the following new paragraphs and redesignate accordingly.
Without objection, further reading of the amendment is dispensed with. The representative is recognized for 5 minutes on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm introducing this amendment because I believe that it's extremely important that we acknowledge the fuller history here if we're going to look comprehensively at the United States-South African relations. And if this bill is going to criticize the South African government's decisions, some of which, as I said, I disagree with, just as there's a lot of disagreements that I have with the United States government and that we've had not only now, but over the years. But so therefore the record should also reflect the terrible decisions that were made in South Africa by South Africa's apartheid regime prior to 1994. Should be clear. So this amendment just restates the basic facts that an apartheid Afrikaner government ruled South Africa between 1940 to the 1990s. That government refused to grant political or civil rights to the nation's black majority. It is also true that this government, the apartheid government of South Africa, imprisoned Nelson Mandela for over 27 years. This apartheid government, who looked at black South Africans having no rights, no ability to vote, no ability to free movement. Yet the United States government did not sanction it. In fact, it was the last country to join to sanction South Africa after the rest of the world had done it. The last one. Nelson Mandela became president of South Africa in 1994. Yet it took from 1994 to 2008 to even get Nelson Mandela off the terrorist list in the United States. We've got a lot of work to do to make up to South Africa for our awful behavior. So to come in this short period of time, as Mr. Jackson said, in less than 30 years, and now want to sanction the South African government after all that it has been through is just wrong. And this record should reflect the true history of what has taken place, because this amendment takes us back to where we should never want to go. We should be able to sit down and talk to South Africa, who over those last 30 years, with the leadership of Nelson Mandela, have worked with us cooperatively also in many areas. This disagreement that we have on certain issues shouldn't cause a fracture that will lead us continually to move in the wrong direction. So if we're going to do this kind of amendment, let it reflect the true history of what has taken place. Let it reflect South Africa's place of leadership on the continent of Africa for the last 30 years. Let it reflect the spirit of those black South African citizens of coming back and being able to become presidents and governments headed by black South Africans when they've been forbidden to do it for such a long period of time. So I urge my colleagues to support this amendment so that the record would be clear and reflect who and what South Africa represents in its entirety and not in just a limited viewpoint. Now yield back the balance of my time.
Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman.
Representative Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In the middle of the night and in bad faith, Democrats introduced this amendment, which has no relevance to the underlying bill. The findings listed in my legislation call out the bad actions by the current South African government. And I don't see any role in going back and looking at past governments and the relationships previously. This is the current South African government and the U.S.-South African relations now. And the ranking member's amendment is nothing more, in my opinion, than an attempt to justify the ANC's egregious actions toward Afrikaner community. Arguing over findings language is frankly a waste of everyone's time, especially considering that findings do not have any bearing on actual law, and regardless, if this amendment were to be adopted, the ranking member would still continue to oppose the underlying bill. I encourage every member of this committee to focus on the relevant bill language and oppose this amendment. And with that, Mr. Chair, I yield back.
Any other members seek recognition? Representative Jackson.
I would like to lend my support and agreement with our ranking member Meeks, and please tell me what's appropriate for me to introduce an amendment. I may introduce. Okay, thank you so much.
Yield back.
Yield back.
Any other members seek recognition? Seeing none. Representative yields back. I oppose this amendment. There being no further discussion, the question now occurs on the amendment offered by Representative Meeks, number 41. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying no. No. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it, and the amendment is not agreed to.
Roll call.
Roll call vote having been requested. We will postpone that roll call vote. Pursuant to Chair's previous announcement, this vote will be postponed. Any further amendments? Representative Meeks is recognized.
I have an amendment at the desk. 42.
Clerk shall distribute the amendment.
James, come up here one second. James.
Clerk shall report the amendment.
Amendment to H.R. 2633, offered by Mr. Meeks of New York. Page 14, line 12, strike, and legal authorities.
Without objection, further reading of the amendment is dispensed with. The representative is now recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you. My second amendment is a somewhat technical but nonetheless important fix. When we negotiate sanction bills, and I've negotiated many of them over the years, one of the foundational questions is whether the sanctions authority will be mandatory, the president shall do something, or permissive, he may do something. I've supported both types of sanction bills depending on the specific context in question. The world is not a simple place, and we need to adjust our policy levers to specific contexts. But let's be clear. The executive branch doesn't need to cite a legal authority as to why it is not sanctioning an individual when the underlying authority is permissive in the first place. Yet as drafted, this bill is committing a basic logical error. Moreover, Global Magnitsky has a unique mechanism that allows the chairman and the ranking member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee to send a letter that the administration must respond to and reach a sanctions determination by law. The language in this bill muddies that established process. My amendment fixes these errors by striking a few words. So I urge all of my colleagues to support it, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Representative yields back. I support this amendment. Do any other representatives seek recognition? Seeing none. Being no further discussion, the question now occurs on the amendment offered by Representative Meeks, number 42. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed signify by saying no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the amendment is agreed to. Any further amendments? Representative Jacobs.
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk, Jacobs number 3.
Clerk shall distribute the amendment. Clerk shall report the amendment.
Amendment to H.R. 2633, offered by Ms. Jacobs of California. Redesignate Section 7 as Section 8. After Section 6, insert the following. Section 7, report
Without
on...
objection, further reading of the amendment is dispensed with. The representative is recognized for 5 minutes on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My amendment is very simple. The Trump administration has stopped all refugee resettlement programs in the United States with one exception: Afrikaners from South Africa. As part of our committee's oversight responsibilities, it's important we understand the full accounting of U.S. taxpayer dollars required to resettle Afrikaners in the United States. This amendment would ask for a one-time report with this information. It's a common sense amendment and something I urge all of my colleagues to support. I yield back.
Representative yields back. Now recognize myself. I oppose this amendment. President Trump is justified in providing asylum to these individuals. More importantly, this report does not have relevance in this particular bill. This bill is about holding the South African government accountable about their actions that they have taken that directly and negatively impact the interests of the United States of America. Any other representatives seek recognition? Representative Meeks.
Yes, I thank Ranking Member Jacobs for offering this amendment, which requires the Department of State to report to this committee the amount of money our government is paying to resettle Afrikaners, refugees in the United States. This comes at the same time President Trump has blocked all other refugee settlements to the United States. That is a pretty remarkable when you think about it. Let that sink in. The United States is welcoming white Afrikaners from South Africa, many of whom will tell you they neither need or want refugee status, while we actively turn away people from war-torn countries and those escaping extreme human rights abuses and political violence. The American people deserve to know how much money of their taxpayer dollars are funding this political stunt of a refugee program. So I urge my colleagues to support Representative Jacobs' amendment that will give us much needed transparency. And I yield back the balance of my time.
Any other members seek recognition? Representative Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to point out that this amendment was offered by my treasured colleague from California less than 15 minutes before the start of markup, and appears to be a last-ditch effort to criticize President Trump for his leadership in offering refuge and resettlement for legitimately persecuted Afrikaners. I fully support knowing where every dollar of taxpayer funding goes, but this report does not belong in a bill that reviews the bilateral relationship between the U.S. and South Africa. This amendment is also particularly ironic, given that Democrats had absolutely no issue with taxpayer dollars being used to transport millions of illegal aliens into the United States during the Biden-Harris administration. Even today, Democrats have taken no responsibility for the immigration crisis directly caused by these failed policies. I encourage every member of this committee to oppose this amendment. With that, Mr. Chair, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Any further discussion? Representative Jayapal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank my colleague, Representative Jacobs, for introducing this amendment. I just want to remind the committee and anyone that's watching that the Refugee Resettlement Program has long been a bipartisan program. As the ranking member of the Immigration Subcommittee, I can tell you that it was Democrats and Republicans together who worked on establishing the program, supporting the program, and in fact, the evangelical community has called this the crown jewel of American humanitarianism. This is a program that has saved lives, that have supported people who have been fleeing persecution and conflict, and shown the United States' sense of compassion, built our leadership around the world as we build all of our relationships. And so I think it is entirely appropriate that we find out how much money is being spent on this, given that the rest of the refugee resettlement program has been brought to an abrupt and cruel stop. And there are people that are stranded around the world because the United States has reneged on our promises. So I urge adoption of the Jacobs Amendment, and I yield back.
Representative yields back. Any other members seek recognition? Representative Jackson.
Thank you so much, Chairman. I look forward to supporting the amendment of my colleague, Congresswoman Sarah Jacobs. We are here to deliberate the fate of a nation that is half a world away, a nation that is long entangled, has been long entangled in the bitter veins and vines of racial animosity that was in large part created by the United States of America. South Africa is a baby amongst nations on the continent. We have had a wholesale retreat from anything humanitarian, anything decent, anything engaging in diplomacy across the state. Striking this blow to the South African government is a strike to a blow to the entire continent. I've lived long enough to witness the lies that power tells itself. I have seen the myths that shroud oppression. I must speak plainly against the cruelty of injustice masquerading as legitimate concern. I support the amendment of the Honorable Sarah Jacobs. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Any other members seek recognition? Being no further discussion, the question now occurs on the amendment offered by Representative Jacobs, number 3. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed signify by saying no. No. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it. The amendment is not agreed to. A roll call vote has been requested pursuant to the chair's previous announcement. This vote will be postponed.
I want to thank you for everyone. This is a special group, and it is true. There's not one person in this audience that I had to call to ask for help, that we needed your vote. You're unbelievable people. That includes you, Jason. There's nobody that knows more about tax and money than that man right there. I'll tell you, there's nobody. It's true. And I'm saying that in front of a lot of television, Jason, so I can't ever take it back, but it's true. You do a phenomenal job. Mike, you surround yourself with, whether it's defense or anything else, I could name every single person here, and amazing. But you make my life easy. You trust me, you trust Mike, you trust leadership, you trust yourselves, and you don't make us make the call. One of you said, you know, I don't speak to the president much. I like the president, but I always vote for him. I don't want him to have to waste. I have people, and you know who they are, that I have to call, speak to them. James, is that right? For hours, hours. I know they're going to vote for us, but I have to speak to them for hours. And it's brutal. And it's not like at 3 in the afternoon. It's like 3 in the morning, right? 3 in the morning. You hear that sound of the train? The train is safe now. We don't have to worry about it. Isn't that a beautiful? It's a much nice, you know, it's a much nicer sound now than it was 3 months ago. But so this is a very special group. And I say that with love for all those other people that have to work so hard, but they vote for us. They do vote for us. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing what we're doing. But you are the people that I called Mike, I said, we have to reward the people that I don't get to speak to that I like so much. Doc Ronny, where's Doc Ronny? Unbelievable doctor. He was the doctor in the White House. He was a great admiral, and he's one of the most popular politicians in this country. He won his district by 50 points, but I think I won it by more. I don't. He's got one of the great districts. But Doc Ronny, the reason I like him, he was a doctor, the White House. He took care of Bush, took care of Obama, took care of Trump. And the fake news right over here, they said to him, Doctor, could we ask you a question? Yes, what would you like? Who's the healthiest, Bush, Obama, or Trump? He said, there's not even a contest. By far, the healthiest is President Donald J. Trump. I said, I love that guy. That guy is great. I'm sure that Bush and Obama don't feel the same way, but who the hell cares, right? But I want to thank you, Ronny. You've been great in every way, and you've been a great congressman, and you're not a congressman that I had to call. I never had to call you at 2 in the morning to get your vote, did I, huh? But you're the same, and I just want to thank everybody. You're a special group of people, and you're the first people that I've had at the White House, at the Rose Garden, and it's an honor to have you. Now I want you to sit down, have a great meal. The food is seriously good.
I rise in support of H.R. 3838, the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2026, also known as the SPEED Act. I would like to begin by thanking Chairman Rogers and Ranking Member Smith for their leadership in bringing this bipartisan legislation to the floor for the 65th consecutive year. The Intelligence and Special Operations Subcommittee portions of this bill, in conjunction with approximately $2.2 billion in reconciliation funding, continues to focus on providing our Special Operations Forces, the defense enterprise, and the security cooperation enterprise with the tools required to ensure their capabilities can support the department's efforts in strategic competition and in countering malign PRC actions. This bill supports critical platforms like the V-22 and the MV-75, which are assembled in Texas' 13th Congressional District. This legislation also provides the U.S. Special Operations Command with the ability to accelerate research, development, testing, and procurement at speed and scale to affect outcomes against adversaries through the Urgent Innovation Technologies and Capabilities Pilot Program. The authority for SOCOM, combined with the Defense Intelligence Enterprise and the Defense Security Cooperation Agency's efforts, will continue to be our strategic hedge against an increasingly contested and denied battle space by peer adversary capabilities and malign influence. We will enable leaders to make informed decisions in an increasingly complex world, enhancing the U.S. military's lethality across the board. Finally, this bill, coupled with reconciliation, is just the beginning of the increased resourcing needed to ensure our Special Operations Forces, the Defense Intelligence Enterprise, and the Security Cooperation Enterprise can support the Department's efforts in strategic competition and countering malign influence. We owe it to the men and women who volunteer to serve in these roles, our special operators, uniform and civilian intelligence personnel,
Time has expired.
And security cooperation personnel to equip
Gentleman's
them
time has expired.
with the capabilities. Thank you. I yield back.
Thank you very much. A man that everybody loves. He was my doctor in the White House, and I got to know him very well. He was also the doctor for Barack Hussein Obama. Have you heard of him? And he was the doctor for a man named Bush. And at a press conference, they asked him, who's in the best shape? Who's the healthiest? Who's the strongest? Who's the best physical specimen of the three? He said, that's easy. President Donald Trump. And I said, I love this guy. I said, I love him. Ronny Jackson, he's now a congressman, as you know. So he was an admiral. He was the chief doctor. He was the whole boss of doctors. And now he's a very, very successful congressman from Texas. Thank you, Ronny, very much. And I appreciate those words. I'll never forget.